Hello and welcome to another episode of Unmuted. I'm your host, Courtland Warren. Here's a question. What impact, if any, do your friends have on you experiencing the best of who you are? What factor, if any, does your friendship and social circles have as it relates to you untapping your full potential? In today's episode, we're going to explore the importance of friend attraction and more specifically, how to attract growth-minded friends. And what we'll be exploring more specifically is how important this is for you having the environment that is conducive for your growth. I've said often, it is the most important thing. Though we aren't able to force ourselves to grow, we can't make growth happen, just like there's nothing that a farmer can do to make a seed grow. We can't make the acorn become an oak tree. All of the intelligence necessary for the oak tree to become an oak tree is already contained within the acorn itself. We can't force that to happen. All we can do as farmers is ensure that that environment is conducive for the growth. So for those of you who listen to Unmuted, I know that you're a person who's serious about your growth and expansion. And of course, sometimes we don't get the growth as fast as we want to. The reality is we can't force the growth. We have to make sure that the environment is set up. We have to make sure that the environment is conducive for the growth that we want to have occur. And one of the major factors in that is the people that you hang around, your social interactions, your friendships. And so we'll explore that today. And in doing so, I believe that you'll see that having a growth-minded circle of friends supports your personal growth. It becomes a positive influence on you. It's more important also to have shared values and opportunities for learning, and it will definitely improve one's mental health. So we'll look at understanding the science of friendship and what some of the neuroscience says about our social interactions. You know, I am, even though I'm in the personal development industry, I'm really not a hype person, right? I like to back it up with science. And so we'll look at what neuroscience has to say about the power of our friendships and social interactions. And then I'll provide you with a framework for attracting the growth-minded friends. And then, as is customary, we'll end it with a story. All right. So let's take a look. Let's do a deep dive into your friendships, your circle, your social interactions. Now, one of the things that I know to be true is, particularly when you start your trajectory towards growth and transformation, one of the big things that comes up is, well, how do I ensure or make sure that I don't leave anybody behind? That's one that comes up a lot. Or what will they say? Maybe you've tried really hard, very diligently to pull people with you who have displayed that they aren't quite ready to go. So we have to be mindful of the choice. We have to be mindful of the fact that people get to choose. And so it is not my responsibility, not your responsibility to force other people to come where you are looking to go. Okay, that's very important. And it is also important to understand that it's not for you to wait until they're ready. So your growth and expansion doesn't require waiting on someone else to be ready to go or move. And them not moving doesn't mean that they're, unimportant or not special or so forth and so on. But you've got to be in a circle. You've got to be in an environment where growth and expansion becomes a topic of conversation, not like, you're doing too much or, you're standing out too much and too often. Does that make sense? Okay. I just finished up, and one of the reasons why this topic is on my mind this morning is because I just finished a golf outing with some buddies of mine, and I know that this group of guys, they really push me to be better. Like when I show up, I want to win. It's competitive, yes, but it's also that environment of competition where I know that there are several guys in that group who want to beat me, who want to improve, who want to be better. In fact, before we got started, and I was talking about the chances of me winning, and one of the guys says, "I think, Courtland, where we're at right now is anybody but you." Anybody but you. And you know what I said to him? I said, well, you know what? Thank you for that confirmation that I am doing my part to make this group better, right? I'm doing my part to make the group kind of rise, kind of elevate, all right? And so that's what I want you to be for your circle, okay? And I want you to make sure that you're in a circle of friends and social interactions where that is the case, where you feel like you've got to rise up, you've got to level up in order to be in that company, in that association, okay? So your environment is very, very important. You don't want to find yourself in an environment where when you want to talk about business and entrepreneurship, the attitude is, oh gosh, here we go again. Like every time you start to talk about your dreams, goals, and aspirations, oh goodness, here we go. I'm not saying we can't take a break. I'm not saying that, we can't, just kind of lay back, kick back, just kind of, just kind of chill on it for a bit. But whenever you want that to be the topic of conversation, you also don't want to feel like you've got to defend it. You also don't want to feel like you're an oddball because you're talking about growth and transformation. And so that circle, quite frankly, is literally going to be smaller. It's going to be smaller just off of pure statistics. Why? Because not everybody is even talking about it. Not everybody has their mind on what's next, the growth, the transformation that is possible. So just naturally, the number of people that you can have that type of conversation with will be smaller, and that's okay. But it is important though to really look at what are some of the science. What does some of the science say about friendships and our social interactions, particularly after with the pandemic, isolation, social isolation continues to take a toll, and I don't know that many people are really considering what that isolation did for people. Okay, social isolation, became a big problem. It starts to affect mental health. All of a sudden, we're getting all of our information from social media and quote unquote influencers, and then influencers, people who did a better job at getting attention and getting followers and likes and so forth. They kind of start setting the tone, right, for what was important to discuss, what was important to talk about. As a result of that, right, we don't know what's real and what's not. A lot of times on social media, what you're getting are the highlights. You're getting the highlight reels, not what's actually going on for people, okay? So, but that became the standard. That became the place that people would turn to, their phones, turn to for their news. That the social media became the news outlet, checking in with quote unquote friends to see how they were doing. Man, they look happier than me. They look like they were having a good time. They look like they were on vacation. I would like to go on vacation, whatever the case might be. So social isolation really sparked this, and then that starts to affect our mental health in addition. So according to research, okay, neuroscience in particular has shown that friendship and social connection have a significant impact on our brain and behavior. Okay, and some of the key findings, and I'm just going to check my notes here, but here's some of the key findings from this neuroscience studies. One, social connections activate the reward center of the brain. Okay, so when we interact with friends or other social connections, it activates the reward center of the brain, which, and this is why this is important, this releases the dopamine and other feel-good chemicals that can lead to positive emotions and feelings of pleasure. So think about when you've been in the company of great friends where there's lots of laughter, right? Just, like the belly laughs, tears watering type laughter. Definitely had some moments like that in my golf tournament over the past weekend. But when that's in place, you feel good. And, dopamine is being released in the body, and that reward center, the feeling good center, the pleasure center is being activated just from your interactions and connections. The research also shows that social connections reduce stress. So if social connections reduce stress, we can make the case that social isolation can actually increase stress. So social connections, they've been shown to reduce stress and anxiety by regularly or regulating the release of stress hormones like cortisol. This can lead to improved mental and physical health outcomes. So what we're getting at and establishing here is that who you associate with, who you're around, the environment that is created in your social interactions has health benefits or, in some cases, health drawbacks. Social connections also improve cognitive functions. So, for example, studies have shown that social connections can improve your memory, attention, and problem-solving skills. So think about times when you've been in a mastermind, a healthy mastermind, or with friends and associates, and there's a problem or discussion about a particular issue, and then ideas get thrown out, right? And remember, the first rule of improv is that you don't get to say no, right? So when you're brainstorming, you're throwing out ideas about possible solutions, notice the excitement, the enthusiasm, the energy that comes from that. You and a couple of friends decided you're going to just have a day where we're going to just brainstorm. We're going to just sit together and look at each person's business or ideas. Think about how when you walk away from that type of environment, you feel so much better. You feel encouraged, particularly if you didn't have to spend all of the time defending what your idea was. It is also true that social connections have been linked to lowering rates of chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes. Okay, so overall, what we're getting at here is that neuroscience has shown that social connections and friendship have a significant impact on your brain and your behavior. So prioritizing, building, and maintaining supportive social connections can lead to improved mental and physical health outcomes and support personal growth and well-being. So I'm all about that, right? Supporting your personal growth and well-being, but it's important that you not look to do it alone. So to my listeners out there, and some of you that I've worked with for a while, one of the things that becomes scary for people when they really delve into personal growth, development, transformation, one of the things that comes up is it can feel lonely, particularly in the beginning, because you've been in an environment or a circle where personal development was not prioritized. So when you start to prioritize it, it can feel lonely. You can feel like you're moving out on your own and you're going to be by yourself. Sometimes that isolation and that feeling of loneliness can get to the point that it's like, well, it might be safer to retreat. It might be safer to return to where I was, and I want to caution against that, because as you start to move out and as you start to move forward, what you're actually going to be doing is setting yourself up to attract, okay? You're going to be setting yourself up to attract the friendships and the social connections that are conducive for your growth, which is extremely important, okay? So the benefits then of that strategy is that you want to be pursuing your own interests, number one. Okay, you want to pursue your own interests and that help you meet like-minded individuals who share your passions and values. How often do you find yourself maintaining relationships, be they professional or personal, and you're maintaining the friendship or you're maintaining that connection, and it's not, hear me, right? It's not even in alignment with your passions. Sometimes we will maintain the relationship for fear of being alone, right? We'll maintain that relationship because we're thinking, well, at least it's someone and it's better than being by myself. Maybe, maybe not, if it doesn't support your passions. So here's a framework then that you can use for attracting growth-minded friends. Now, Dale Carnegie wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is an all-time classic in my view when it comes to personal development. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. But as I was thinking about the podcast, I started thinking, you know what? No one really talks about how to make friends. I've heard the adage, well, if you want friends, then show yourself friendly. That makes sense. But what about a framework? When I say framework, like a system for attracting the types of friends that you want to have. You ever thought about that? I gave that some thought, and here's a framework that I believe would work. Okay, and when I look at how I've made acquaintances and connections over time, it really does follow this idea. First and foremost, make friends and attract growth-minded friends by first pursuing your own interest. One of the more difficult ways to attract friends is to get yourself involved in things that don't even interest you, but because other people were doing it, you decided to go ahead. Right? If it's not something that is of interest to you, resentment will grow, and the relationship or friendship will not be authentic. It won't feel authentic. But pursuing your own interest can help you meet like-minded people who share your passions and values. This can then lead to meaningful connections and friendships. Let's say, I like to golf. So for me, my friends, right, we're going to, a group of friends of social interactions, I'm going to meet people golfing. I also like talking entrepreneurship and being resilient as an entrepreneur. So I'm going to look towards opportunities where I know those individuals congregate. Okay. You might like hiking. You might like chess. You might like, gardening. So wherever your passion and interests are, follow that. Okay. Allow your curiosity to lead. That's going to increase the likelihood that you will meet people who have shared passions and values. Another thing, I look back and say, what did I do? What did I do that was different that would enable me to attract, friends? And it could also come down to attending events and workshops. Attending events and workshops that are in alignment with what you're interested in. Now, a lot of times when it comes to attending workshops and events, people get really caught up in, well, what is it going to cost and what's the price of it? And I often say that is the wrong question, right? The question is not what is the price. The question is what is the value to be received and what price am I paying by not having that skill set, right? But that's another topic. But attending events and workshops related to your interest can also provide you with opportunities to meet new people and learn new skills. So I believe that skill development, particularly in the age of artificial intelligence, skill development will be at a premium. And as I've shared in a previous podcast, you want to provide experiences that lead to predictable transformation. If you're merely transactional, then your industry is likely going to be looking to replace you with artificial intelligence. If all you do is transactional, we'll figure out programming that can get the transaction done. You want to do things that lead to people's transformation, okay? Another thing that you can do is be open and authentic, okay? I like to say that I can pretty much be friends with anyone as long as I know where they're coming from. Does that make sense? Like, be consistent in who you are. So for me, it's like I've noticed interactions where, in this group or with this person and in this group, the person acts this way. In this group, they act this way. In that group, they speak this way. They're really like a chameleon, okay? Versus being authentic and, being true to who you are. Now, being true to who I am doesn't mean that I get to remain stuck. So I'm not looking to use that as a justification. Okay, well, I got to be me. Well, I got to be me in the environment that I'm in, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm going to change my core values and principles in order to be liked by someone else. So you want to be authentic and be open, and this will help you attract like-minded individuals who share in your values and interests also. This can lead to deeper, more meaningful connections. So, and the reason why I want you to focus on, and I encourage focusing on deeper, meaningful connection, is because in this day and age, we're finding a lot of surface level interactions where there's no real challenge, there's no growth to occur. And in fact, if you challenge them to grow, some people even get offended. Have you recognized that? Like, they cross your boundaries, or they want you to compromise your principle, right? And then there's the threat of not being in a relationship, or the threat of being ostracized. And I'm saying, be willing to do that. Be willing to do that, because as I would rather be a friend to myself than an enemy to myself, because I took on someone else's way of thinking. And maybe the last part of the framework is be a person who actively listens. One thing I know for sure is that human beings love the feeling, or love knowing that they are understood. And by practicing active listening, you can build deeper connections with others and show that you value their perspective and their experiences. Now, just because you're an active listener doesn't mean that you have to take on their way of seeing it. But by your willingness to listen, your willingness to understand their perspective of why they see it the way they see it. See, you don't have to be threatened by it. And know also that your listening doesn't require, you're not in a battle to get them to change their mind. Okay, it is okay to have different perspectives, different viewpoints. That's one of the things that contributes to the health of the relationship. The health of the relationship is improved through varying perspectives and various ideas. So you want to be in an environment where you're challenged to be better, where you're challenged to grow, and it's not from a place of comparison. It's not from a place of, I'm looking to be better than them. But are you in an environment where they will challenge you to be better than you were before? So that when you state a goal, a dream, an aspiration, are you in the types of circles where they will ask you how it's going? Are you in the type of environment where they will ask you if you got done what you said you would get done? Where, I have, I'm thinking about my buddy Vic, and Vic said, man, how's the book coming along? Okay, are you already thinking about book 2? Because you want to be thinking about book 2 before you finish book 1. And then now and again, he'll check in with, okay, here was the outline. What's happening with this chapter? Where are you now? Right. So, and every time that he does it, I don't always like it. Right. I don't always like it. But I appreciate what that level of accountability from someone that I respect. I appreciate what that does. So you might want to look into your life and ask yourself, honestly, have you set up yourself to be surrounded by people who know that it's okay to challenge you? Or do you simply have a lot of yes people around who won't challenge you to be greater, who won't challenge you to level up? And notice how your resentment actually grows towards those people who, how do I say this? Your resentment will actually grow towards people who are settling for less than what you're capable of. I'll say that differently. When you find yourself in a relationship and you know that you're not showing up as you can, where you're not bringing the best of you to the table, and yet the person that you're in relationship with is like okay with it. Like they're just happy to have you around. But you know that they know that it's not the best that you can be. Notice how your resentment actually starts to fester and grow towards that person, because you know that they are accepting a lesser version of you, and that for you is causing levels of distrust. It's actually causing distrust in you. You don't trust them because you know that they're willing to accept less than what you're capable of. You actually want to, even though you may resist it in the beginning, fight it at first, your desire is actually to be around people who won't settle for less than what you are, than what is your best. And imagine what would it be like, what it would be like in your friendship, in your marriage, in your personal relationships, if there was a commitment to the growth and expansion of us. That, yeah, we can have tough times. Yeah, we can deal with obstacles. Yep, we can have some adversity. But that won't be our reason for not showing up and being our best. Not better than me, not better than you, right? But can you be your best? And do you have friendships that do that? Or when you really look at it, are your friendships the types of friendships where you can go and you can wallow in and get sympathy, but not challenge? Be mindful of that, because that environment is not conducive. Now, when you start to transform, when you start to grow, understand this. One of two things is going to happen. One of two things will happen. Either that relationship is going to evolve or it will dissolve. That's it. When you are committed to growth and you really start to grow and the trajectory of your life starts to change and you are now transforming your life and world, one of two things is going to happen with all of the relationships in your life. It is either going to evolve, so it's going to grow with you, or it's going to dissolve. It's going to fade away, and you won't even have to do anything about it. Right? That's nature's effect on what happens when there is growth. Okay? So when you practice active listening, when you put yourself in the places where like-minded people will be. Now, and that just brings up this idea. Sometimes what prevents people from showing up in the places where like-minded people will be, sometimes what gets in the way is imposter syndrome. So there's the belief, well, why would I go to a gathering of resilient entrepreneurs? I don't even have my business yet, right? That's the best time to go. Right? You don't have to wait until you have it all together before you start to show up in those environments. Allow your curiosity to lead. Allow your inquisitive nature to lead. And when you get there and you find those people, what you're going to see about the really successful people, they love helping people get started. The really, really successful people, they have no problems making a recommendation. They have no issues with sharing insights with people who are serious. That's not a problem that they have. Okay. So these individuals are individuals who are committed to the growth of their industry, the growth of their world, the growth of life. Remember, they have also this desire to be around like-minded people. And so they'll welcome you in. You don't have to have it all together before you start showing up. You don't have to have it all perfectly in place before you start to see yourself as worthy of being in those environments. That's not the case at all. You go before you're ready. So imposter syndrome can get in the way, and you know, well, man, what would I say? What would I do? Be normal, right? One of my mentors over the years used to be he was the president of the organization that I worked for. This was years and years ago, and we golfed a lot. He was actually the person who really got me involved in golf, and people would be always kind of confused at why is, like, how does Courtland have that kind of access? Why does Courtland get to hang out with him? And there were people who were, like senior to me who actually were envious of this young, analyst who's hanging out with the CEO and playing golf with him and so forth. I didn't really understand the value of that connection and friendship at the time, if I'm being quite candid. But I remember asking him, I'm like, Bill, like, why do you hang out with me? Like, for real though. Like, he kind of looks at me. I'm like, seriously, like, why do you hang out with me? I mean, I'm not even a good golfer. I'm not, he said, Courtland, one of the reasons why is because you're one of the few people in my life who, when I hang out with them, you're not asking me for anything. And I can trust that there's no ulterior motive. I was like, okay, all right. And the truth was, I liked hanging out with him. That was true. And we golfed, and he was CEO. My dream has always been has been entrepreneurial and owning my own company and so forth. So it started to align with a lot of the framework that I've shared with you here. First and foremost, you follow what is passion for you, even if it's weird or odd to your immediate, your current circle or environment. Another thing I like is, I like fashion. So I will find myself in environments where men's fashion is the topic of conversation. Not all of my friends have an interest in that. So in that environment, okay, so in that area, they wouldn't be my people. I like golf. Okay, you may like hiking, you may like gardening. Follow your passion and interest first, and as you follow that, you will attract people where at least the conversations can align. Then also, it is important as a part of the framework, okay, is that you attend I say seminars or workshops, but what I'm getting at is you want to attend or find yourself in places where learning about things that you're passionate about is the topic. Okay, so go to a gardening show and sit in and listen to a person speak about gardening. Listen to an expert in that area. Now, this is different than just getting it off of YouTube or listening to a podcast on it. I'm saying actually find yourself physically in the environment, or on the in the community groups where that is the subject. Why? Because the continued learning is important to the development of the friendship. So you want to be in environments where learning is key. You want to be in environments where there's a continued commitment to growth and expansion. So therefore, you don't just find yourself in an environment where everybody's stuck and nobody's moving. Okay. Then you want to share what your journey's like with other people. Share what you're going through. Let them know what you're working on. And as you share that on that journey, as you're on that road, they may know people, okay, and this has happened often. They know people who fit what your interests are, or who can relate to the challenge or struggle that you might be having on your journey. So your willingness to share about your personal growth and the journey that you're on in that particular area, and being vulnerable as you do so, okay, this enables other people to open up about their struggles and successes. And now that shared suffering, mutual suffering, I believe it was Peter Montoya who pointed this out to me. He said one of the things that builds strong community is mutual suffering. Mutual suffering builds strong community. Why? Because we had a shared struggle. All right. So we went through it together. We made it through it together. That's why you see a lot of times sports teams and franchises, when they win championships, right? There's a bonding there because of what they went through to get it. You had back in, I've done some research on the subject of racial injustices, and you had a lot of war veterans, particularly in Vietnam, was the research that I had pulled from, where they were, highly racist individuals. Highly racist individuals find themselves on the front lines of war with, people of ethnicities that they had prejudices against, and how it would dispel, how it would remove the prejudices, because in war, it's like we're in this together. We are in the fight together. And you saved my life, or I wouldn't have been able to make it back to my family without you. And it had the effect of going beyond the preconceived notions based on a person's color, or it could also be gender. So let's say you're a resilient entrepreneur. You want to be connected to other entrepreneurs. Why? Because you will be able to relate to the struggle. The reasons why winners like to hang out with each other is because they can share stories about what it was like to get to the top. Put yourself in those environments. Set yourself up for those types of wins, and you attract greater friendships. And those social interactions then are conducive. It is an environment that is conducive for the growth that you want to experience. Once upon a time, in a world full of chaos and confusion, there was this little boy named Jack. Now, Jack was a dreamer, a believer, and a seeker of truth. Jack spent days reading books, attending seminars, even exploring new ideas. And despite his passion for personal growth, Jack often felt lost and alone on his journey. He longed for companions who shared his thirst for knowledge and his desire to make a difference in the world. And one day, Jack decided to set out on a journey to find like-minded friends. He traveled far and wide, seeking out communities of thinkers and doers. Along the way, he encountered many obstacles and challenges, but he never lost sight of his goal. As he journeyed on, Jack began to feel the weight of his loneliness. He longed for someone to share his dreams with, someone to encourage him when he felt lost, and someone to celebrate his victories with. Well, finally, after many months of searching, Jack stumbled upon a group of growth-minded individuals. They welcomed him with open arms and embraced him as one of their own. And together they explored new ideas. They challenged each other's thinking, and they supported each other's dreams. As Jack spent more and more time with his new friends, he began to feel a sense of belonging they had never experienced before. He felt more confident, more inspired, and more alive than he had ever felt. He realized that the power was in growth-minded friends, and that this power was not just in what they could teach him, but also in how they could help him become his best self. With his newfound community, Jack went on to achieve great things. He wrote books, started businesses, and made a positive impact on the world. And he knew that he could never have done it without the support and encouragement of growth-minded friends. If you're listening here, and obviously you are, right? But the story of Jack is not just a tale of adventure and discovery. It is a reminder of the power and the importance of attracting growth-minded friends. When we surround ourselves with people who share our values and aspirations, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and new opportunities. We become stronger, we become more resilient, and we become more capable of achieving our dreams. So I'm urging you to seek out growth-minded friends. Seek out growth-minded friends. Don't allow your friendships to be a product of just what lands in your lap. Go beyond, you can keep them, but go beyond the friends that you made in middle school and college. What new friends have you added into your life over the last 5, 10, 20 years? Don't just accept what falls into your lap, but go be actively seeking out with your mindset on the idea of I attract growth-minded friends. Join communities, attend workshops, be a part of and strike up even conversations with someone who inspires you. You never know where that journey will take you, but it will support you to have like-minded friends. And you can be sure that it is a journey worth taking. Your friendships, your social interactions, along with the books that you read, the shows that you watch, the music you listen to, where you get your information, all of these things are contributing to your growth environment. An environment is the number one factor in your transformation and growth, your environment. And if you find yourself in an environment, particularly as the subject is today, particularly when it comes to social interactions or friendships, finding yourself in an environment where your friendships don't serve, then be responsible to do something different, even if it means you go out and seek growth-minded friends yourself. I hope that helps. If it does, don't keep it a secret. Let someone know that this podcast exists. This is Unmuted, and I'm Courtland Warren. Thanks for listening.